We are live.
Okay.
Where would you like that?
Where do you want to sit? I'm going to sit. I put a chair up for you, but we don't need it. So let's pull it in a little bit. Put
Maybe
this mic over here. Hold it.
Love it. Love it. Spilling on. This doozy. Where do you? Oh, I don't. Oh, she's talking about.
I got two. I've got two.
We probably need to.
Oh, you wait.
Oh, there's four.
There's one just in case.
Whatever's table.
Sorry, there's one.
Everyone.
Oh, of course. And Jim talked to you. It's Is there
Here if you want.
Yeah. Are we still waiting for a presenter?
I'm gonna hurt people. Hello, hello. Hello. Good. Finally, the tech is coming together. Thank you, IT. IT has a table there, just in case we have problems. Because this is what, the third event in this room. For us, it's the first. So we're learning about the room, its capabilities, and all the good features. A lot of automation, a lot of things that work on our behalf. So, welcome to the new building, and welcome to the ESCOM production of What About Age? I mean, this is a fascinating topic. Rachel Kurtz, you see these posters around? Rachel Kurtz found these posters in New York, NYU, New York University, and brought them back here to illustrate situations of ages. And we're here to support the exhibit, the concept, and the whole process of making us much more aware of what we're doing. So we have a panel going. Let me introduce the panel a little bit. Just at the end, we have Janae Cottrell from Marin County. Then we have Diana Lopez from the Marin
The Commission on Aging.
The Commission on Aging. Oh, and I'm with ESCOM, and Linda here will be our moderator. So, thank you for coming. Let me introduce Linda. Linda grew up in Brooklyn and graduated with an MA from NYU School of Engineering. Since retiring, she served as League of Women Voters, Suicide Prevention Hotline, and the Canal Alliance. She's very social and community oriented. So she is now training with the Alzheimer's Association. Linda lives in San Rafael, enjoys her time with her adult children, live theater, which I appreciate, theater myself, and curling up with a good book. So let's move forward. Each of our panelists has a statement that will be put into a slideshow after we do a video that Rachel made for us. Could you start the video, Christian?
All right, hold on.
I'm Rachel Kurtz. I'm the visionary lead of the What About Age initiative. And I thank you for being here today to have a discussion on ageism. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. So I just wanted to share a little bit of background on this project. And then I'll hand it off to the panels so you guys can get going. So thank you. How did we get here? Well, I was in New York over November 2024 for Thanksgiving, visiting my son who lives in Manhattan, and we were in Greenwich Village, and I saw these posters across the street. These were in the windows, they're huge windows. Turns out these are the Kimmel windows of NYU. And I thought, this is so interesting. I need to figure out how to bring it to Marin. Now, at the time, I thought when the exhibit finished, they could just roll out the posters, put them in a tube, and bring them to Marin. Well, it doesn't work that way. And so, over the last year and a half or so, in partnership with Vivalon and the county and many others, we brought the exhibit and actually recreated the exhibit in a little different way to Marin. The exhibit is on the first floor and the third floor of the Civic Center in the same building as the library. So why does this matter? Why bring an exhibit about ageism to Marin? Well, the first thing is, and I know the panel will be discussing this, we actually need to say the word ageism. We don't talk about that. We talk about racism. We talk about sexism, right? We've learned about that. We talk about homophobia, but we don't talk about ageism. And we need to. Not only how others talk about people, older adults, but not just older adults. It's also children or teenagers, right? We say teenagers, all teenagers. We know that's not true, just like it's not true that all older adults are X, Y, and Z. So, but we also need to look at why it matters for Marin and the data in Marin. We know that our population in Marin is getting older. And we are one of 4 counties across the country that have the most significant older adult population, which is exciting, but also a bit scary because it means we need to do things a bit differently. We also need to be aware of what comes with being an older adult these days. And again, it's not everyone. So I'm 58, but somebody else who's 58 could look and feel and be different than what I am at 58. So we know, and that was from Dr. Tracy Genron that I learned the other week, was a really good way of talking about how everyone is different. It's not just an age, it's not just that number. So when we talk about the What About Age initiative, the first part was the art exhibit, which is up and going until May 6th, but it's also that conversation around ageism and calling it out and talking about it. We also need to talk about how we identify what's needed for our older adults, how we talk about the services and the programs that are needed, and how do we educate and train our community around older adults. So it's not really talking about adding new requirements. It's about seeing what we're missing and what we need to do better. We know, and I'm sure many of you in the room today know that there's a big attention right now for older adults around social isolation, falls. We have to be very careful with falls, dementia. This one is near and dear to me as my dad had dementia for 12 years, died about 2 years ago now. But also caregiving, and my mom was the primary caregiver for my dad. So we know that this is very, very important. These, as well as probably other areas that we need to pay attention to for our older adults. We have so many nonprofit agencies and others and the county that are serving our older adult community. It's fantastic. But we're a little bit disconnected, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think it could be better in terms of how we all work together. We have lots of different programs. We have lots of people serving the community, and we also have a lot of support for our community, which is great. But again, we need to be a little bit more connected in this space. That's all I want to share at this point. I know you're going to get lots of information from the panel, but I am available. If you would like to meet for coffee, I love having coffee. Or if you'd like to meet at the exhibit, I'm happy to walk through with you and hear your stories and your thoughts around getting older in Marin and what that means to you and your community and your family. So have a great afternoon, and I look forward to following up with everyone afterwards. Take care.
All right. So, thank you for watching that. Now we'll get started. Okay. Oh, yes. Not used to using these, but they're very effective. All right. Thank you for watching the video. Now we get on to our what the panel thinks about different topics. We each have our statements addressed in a slideshow, and the tech is going to run through the slideshow as we ask them to, and we'll go from there. They'll start it right now. Again, tech, it's wonderful when it works. But it takes time. So much for automation. Here we go. All right. So I'll do a thumbs up. Okay. So let's do next slide. These are the moderators. This is Linda, our moderator here. Next slide. And this is me, Gary Gonzer. I'm with ESCOM, which is the Emeritus Students College of Marin. We have been doing work with the college for over 50 years. We just celebrated 50 years, or 52. And these are some of the things we want to work with in the field of ageism. All right, next slide. Okay, what about age? Everyone has it. It's not as though it's an infectious disease because it's not transmittable. And what are the symptoms? Is there a cough? Is there a stutter? Is there, grain of the temples a little bit? Our energy tends to be down. Okay, we all know what the symptoms are, and we all have them, some in different ways. Okay, what's the prognosis? If you look at it as an illness, it becomes a little lighter to me. And I'm not using a deadly illness as an example. The prognosis is we're going to just live with it and make the best, and in fact, grow with it, because there are ways and there are areas now that we have ways of getting a handle on this thing called age and having fun with it. Okay, now, is there a cure? There is.
Yes.
I'm afraid though, it is fatal. I hate to say this, but we knew that. And as a general statement, ageism is a public reaction to and prejudice against what we just talked about, age, without understanding, without knowing what we do in many, many, many cases. Okay, next slide. Here we go. Stereotypes. How we think about age, prejudice, how we feel, and discrimination, how we act. A lot of different facets to ageism, and these are all towards others on age. If you see someone that's older or younger, how do these influence you? How do you feel? How do you think? And how do you act? Ageism negatively impacts, and we all know that, but it's good to hear it, negatively impacts our health and well-being, financial security, as well as the economy as a whole. All right. It exists in many forms, influencing everything from personal interactions to public policy. And it impacts us at every age. Okay, next slide. Okay, then what's the nature of ageism? Ageism leads to a society that is age segregated, just like racism creates a culture and a society that is race segregated. Ageism shortens people's lives, undermines effectiveness of us in the workplace, business effectiveness. Ageism has serious and far-reaching consequences for the health, employment opportunities, and human rights of older and younger adults and children. Ageism impacts prospects and hopes of the younger generations as well. Ageism permeates with women's lives from beginning to end. In many ways, more than it affects men. All right, next slide. How does ageism affect us? Again, any negative message affects us emotionally. It causes stress, and it does take its toll on our lives, even to the extent of shortening our lives. The stress of discrimination affects our heart, cardiovascular, and our immune system. Ageism can limit adequate medical care. How a doctor treats us relates to how they relate to us. There's a tendency to believe ageism stereotypes, which we learned when we were very young. Working and growing are harder with ageism. And on the other side, of course, people live longer with positive views of older and younger adults. Okay, next, good. How to cope with ageism. Some of the things that I pulled up from my own world: stay healthy. Bottom line, stay healthy. Our aging well depends on that. Stay social, stay active, stay sane, and rational. I had to put rational in there because sane means, okay, it means rational. After all, stay passionate. Our emotions are very important. Stay engaged and learn new things. Now, being the president of ESCOM, I know all about these. ESCOM pledges to make these ideals real. reducing isolation while bringing people together. So that whole list comes from what we do and what I've had experience in relating with older and younger adults. All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next panelist.
Next slide, please. Gary already introduced me, and I'm going to talk about the ways we experience ageism in our lives. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to start with this quote from a wonderful book by Louise Aronson, who's a physician and gerontologist. She retired from UCSF, but she's done so much great work in this area of ageism. And she describes elderhood as a decades-long phase that encompasses a huge amount of diversity. It's no different from childhood to adulthood. One of the things that we noticed, and I'm sure Janae too, in the work that she does, is that when we saw, when we would see age brackets, we would see 20 to 30, 30 to 40, and then we would be 60 and above. And any one of us in this room that is over 60 could make the argument that your 60s are different from your 70s are different from your 80s, and maybe 61 is different from 60, right? And the point I'm making is that there's a huge amount of diversity. Everyone ages differently, everyone goes through their life differently, and it's something to really recognize and not create a situation where we're thinking that people from 60 to 100 or 60 and over are all alike. And I know that Janae does a lot of work in this area, and she's much more of an expert on this, but this is true. Next slide, please. Where I want to focus is about how we talk about aging. It's really common in conversation. Some people will say, oh, I'm having a senior moment, or they'll just off the cuff say things to people. Someone said to me the other day, oh, I'll always dye my hair because if you let your hair go gray, you look old. And I'm standing. Okay, all right. So, okay. And also I think that I want to go back to something that Gary said about age segregation. The United States is considered to be one of the most age segregated countries in the world. And one of the things that we work on and all the work that we do is to look at age diversity. And if you don't know Ashton Applewhite and her book, This Chair Rocks, please write her name down. She does wonderful work in this area, and she has this a website called Old School. I think
This is the school, This Chair Rocks.
No, but the book is This Chair Rocks, but where she pulls data and resources, I think is called Old School. Is that right? Yeah. So go online and check out what she's doing, her work. But what she does that's so valuable is that she brings the work of many people who are working on ageism forward for all of us to share. It's available to you. Everything is open source. The way we started doing these not this particular series with ESCOM, but the way we started working on it on the commission is we just took a slide presentation that she had created and changed it so that it worked for our audience. So it's wonderful to have material to start with if you're going to be interested and move forward with working in the world of ageism.
Can you repeat her name?
Her name is Ashton Applewhite.
Thank you.
Her book is This Chair Rock, and the website is Old School, where where a bunch of resources are. A wonderful source of information. So ageism is common in conversation, and it's the vehicle through which ageism is activated, normalized, and legitimized. One of the things that's so important when we're speaking and probably I was trying to think of an example of where we wouldn't think this way, but make sure that we use inclusive language. We, us, and our. And I used an example that's not on the slide about healthcare.
The next slide.
Oh, next slide, please. No, no, I don't know. I don't know what you did with it. Let me see if I can find it because I just want to share it. That's okay. Or maybe if I find it, I'll go back to it. But there are so many ways in which our conversations are not inclusive, and it's critical that they be inclusive. Next slide, please. So important. When you're looking at ageism, the starkest contrast is when you're discussing financial security. One of the things that happens, and we're all aware of, is that women live longer, and fewer than half of women have a retirement plan. And a growing number are worried about running out of money. Janae and her group have done some work on this, and they have substantiated it with data. So, which is always important. And another thing to remember is that 50% of women who are over 85 are living at poverty level or just slightly above. So it's really key to keep that in mind. Next slide. So I want to really, I'm not going to go to this slide yet. I want to talk about structural inequality. Many of us, along with the men in our lives and the men in our world, have worked for a long time. And women more often get sidelined in the workforce. And what happens is that society loses care-oriented judgment and continuity, ethical memory, social cohesion, the very capacities that complex systems need. And it's instead of choosing short-term optics, it's important to choose long-term resilience. And we can see that in our own lives, and we can see that in the world outside of us. We don't want the organizations that we work for to lose the wisdom of the women that work there. Often power is consolidated in men in leadership roles, and it continues longer than women. And one of my work colleagues is here in the audience today and can talk about the disparity in leadership, the way leadership happens for women and men. Older women's authority must be re-earned, and re-earned. Women are expected to reinvent themselves over and over again with less support. I think it's important for every woman and who's working, younger women, older women who are working, not to make the mistake of thinking that the promise of gender equality means that our careers will be similar to men's at the same age. So we need to plan for that asymmetry. Next slide, please. And health. The term ageism goes beyond casual stereotypes and significantly affects health. It exists in this for all genders. It exists in physician-patient interactions, from screening procedures to treatment decisions. There's a lot of research out there that shows that physicians are looking to manage conditions that older people have, but not treat them in the same way they would treat someone who is in their 40s or 50s that had the same condition. So we have to really pay attention to that. I work as a patient navigator, and one of the things that I do is I work with people to prepare for doctor's appointments. What questions are you going to ask? Certainly that makes sense because the physician doesn't have very much time, but also what is the framework that you're bringing to your physician appointment so that you really are understood and leave that appointment with what you need. And then physicians and, a lot of other folks in our world view older people negatively. And I'm going to turn the presentation over to Janae, who's going to take it from here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me. Your ESCOM organization is so impressive, and I think a lot of what you're doing, just by being active, you're fighting ageism just in by being part of this group. So it's very inspirational. So as Gary said, I do work for the County of Marin in Health and Human Services. I am the Director of Aging and Adult Services. Next slide, please. And work very closely with Diana Lopez because she's on our Commission on Aging. So when are we considered old? Well, when we're about 40, that's when the danger of ageism in the workplace really kicks in. I mean, to me,
There's
that's
something about ageism, Glenn. This is good. Watch it.
I apologize. I'll be done.
how'd you like it? To me, 40 sounds so old, but that truly is when, especially like in the tech industry, you could be considered old. When we're about 50 or maybe even 48, 49, 50, we start getting bombarded with mail from AARP to ask us to join. When we're 55, we can move to an active older adult community like Oakmont and Santa Rosa or Rossmore and Walnut Creek. When we're 60, that's when we're considered an older adult by the federal government. That's when, that's who we serve in Aging and Adult Services. That's the funding that we get from the federal government and the state government. That's who we serve, people 60 and older. If you're 62, I think this might be going up with younger generations, but some people start taking their Social Security at 62. At 65, of course, you become eligible for Medicare. At 70, you can max out your Social Security. And then if you're 75, unfortunately, there's sort of this cliff at 75 where that's where we start to see a lot more falling among older adults. And we tend to see if you end up getting hospitalized or you have a chronic condition, that's where it can really start to accelerate, unfortunately. And then, of course, by the time you're 80, most people would consider you to be an older adult. But I'm just pointing this all out because, when you're old is really arbitrary. And as you can see, even when it's arbitrary, there's no right answer. But I like this. I know you can't see it totally because of the closed captioning, but this phrase down here says 50 isn't older if you're a tree. So let's all pretend we're trees. Next slide, please. So a lot of things, as both Diana and Gary have already pointed out, contribute to our physical and our mental aging. Of course, heredity is a big part of that, but there's also non-medical things that in the field that I'm in, we call them the social determinants of health. These things, even though they're strictly non-medical, they actually do affect our health and how we age. So for example, your level of education or whether you have access to education, your healthcare. Do you have quality healthcare? Do you have a good relationship with your doctor who, as Diana said, will treat you for you, not treating your age? That's so important. Your zip code, where you live, like probably doesn't surprise you that in Marin, people in Belvedere and Tiburon and Ross and Greenbrae, they live longer on average than people in Marin City and the Canal and Southern Nevada. So, and our county does every few years does a study on this, and it just came out again and of course verified that. Your social connections, that's so important. Your familial connections, your connections with friends, your connections maybe with the people you work with or people who belong to clubs like you do, or your place of worship. As we age, oftentimes our world does shrink in terms of our social connections because, in my case, one of my kids moved to Washington State. I don't get to see her very often. Your friends may get sick, pass away, or go into skilled nursing or assisted living. People move away. So, as I think that's so important for us to be aware of, and so is why organizations like ESCOM are so important to as you get older, it's really important to get involved in different organizations where you connect socially with everyone. And then, of course, economic stability, as Diana mentioned. In Marin County, we have to do a survey every 4 years. It's related to the federal money we get from the Older Americans Act. And financial security is the fastest growing concern among older adults in Marin County. It's now up to 29%. The last time we did the survey in 2019, it was 13%. We're going to do the survey again next year, and we're thinking it's probably going to be well over 35%. And obviously, if you're struggling to put a roof over your head or to get food, that's going to huge stress levels, huge impact on your health and how you age. Next slide, please. I don't know what happened when this picture grew so much, but we all age differently, again, as Gary and Diana has said. So I saw this photo and learned these facts at the American Society on Aging conference last spring from Ken Dykewald. Has anyone ever heard of Ken Dykewald? Yeah, he is. Yes, right. He's incredible. He's a psychologist and a demographer, and he's really one of the thought leaders in the field of aging. And this kind of blew me away. So when these pictures were taken, Tom Cruise was 62, and that's the age at which he filmed Top Gun 2. Wilford Brimley was 49 when this picture was taken. Wilford Brimley was 49 when he filmed the movie Cocoon. So if we didn't know any different, I think most people would say that Wilford Brimley was older than Tom Cruise when he took this picture. So I just think this is a great illustration of that. And it doesn't mean that Wilford Brimley isn't capable in other ways, but it just shows in terms of physical aging, we're all very different. Next slide, please. So in terms of dictionary definitions, I have no qualms with the way that the Webster's Dictionary defines old and young. Old is advanced in years or age or showing the characteristics of age. Can't really argue with that, right? Young is being in the first or an early stage of life, growth, or development. Makes sense. I think both of those make sense. Next slide, please. The issue is in how people interpret old and interpret young. And there's so many stereotypes out there about old and young, but mostly old, that are really negative. And as a result, those stereotypes impact our self-worth and they increase our risk for social isolation. And just going back to some of the data that we learned from our survey, our most recent survey, women in Marin are 3 times more as likely as men to have felt excluded or devalued because of their age. 26% women, 9% men. And I think we probably all agree that a lot of that has to do with the media, right? And all the anti-aging creams and so forth and so on, right? I think most of that is targeted towards women, and women are really, in our media, in our society, it's really about how a woman looks. And nearly 50% of women said they feel that they lack companionship at least some of the time in Marin County. And while our survey didn't ask if that was directly tied, I think there's probably some association. Next slide, please. So these aging stereotypes, they affect us all, but they compound for people who are in certain demographic categories. People who are food insecure are much more likely to feel that they often lack companionship. Same with people who are low income, and people who are LGBTQ are 2 to 3 times more likely to show higher levels of feeling isolated than people who are straight. Next slide, please. But, it's hard because everywhere you look, these words are, these negative words and phrases are all around us. Oh, because you're older, you're getting a little forgetful, or because you're older, you're all of a sudden frail. Or Diana explained to me one day, someone said to her, well, don't you need a handicap placard? Well, if you need one, you need one because if you have mobility issues, and that's fine. But just because you're a certain age doesn't mean that you need a placard. And let's reserve those for the people who really do need them. You know, whether there are people who are 35 who need them, there are people who 92 do not. Let's reserve it for that 35-year-old who truly needs it. So, you know, this is what we're faced with every day. These things are coming at us, just bombarding us every day. Next slide, please. So we see ageism, it's just pervasive. We see it in ads. Diane mentioned the phrase, I'm having a senior moment. Really? How does that make you feel if you're a senior? And then certain words diminish aging, like the word retirement. Originally, it wasn't meant to do that, but I think so many people equate retirement with, oh, you're retired, so you can slow down. You don't have to be as active anymore. You know, you don't need to worry about things. You just, you know, just rest. Just don't do that 10-mile hike, you know, don't do that. Just stay home and watch soap operas, you know, so and then I think, you know, one of the areas where, you know, I think we really need to get Hallmark cards on board is the birthday cards. I picked up this birthday card and a few others the other day, and I would say 80% of the birthday cards were ageist. And this one says, there's a man on the motorcycle to the right, and another man on the left is saying, and you know, I guess he's selling motorcycles. And this one has extra lumbar support, a bifocal windshield, and a built-in pill dispenser. You know, that's, you know, it's ridiculous. And here's what I say about that. Next slide, please. But the good news is we can do something about this. Like Gandhi said, be the change you want to be. We can be the change we want to be with ageism. Let's reframe it. What does that mean? Framing is making choices, like Diana said, about the words we use. And we can choose to emphasize some words and we can choose to leave other words out. And with that, next slide. I have a handout for anyone who would like. I've got it up here and I can hand it out. I know you can't really read this, but on the first side of the handout is it's the story of ageism and why society should treat older adults equally to younger older adults. Why how ageism harms us all, and what's the solution? We can confront ageism by telling our own stories. And the next page is what they call a quick start guide. And this is all from Reframing Aging. So I'd really encourage you to look that up online. It's a fabulous organization. A lot of it is about linguistics. Frameworks Institute, I'm sorry. And within Frameworks Institute, they have the Reframing Aging initiative. And it's centered around linguistics. And as Diana said, the words that we use are so important. So I'm just going to give a couple of these as examples and a couple of examples of words we could use instead. So how do you feel when someone says, oh man, we're really being hit by that silver tsunami? How do you feel about that? You feel good? No. A tsunami is a catastrophe. We're not catastrophes, right? So instead, why don't you say, we could say, as Americans are living longer and healthier, because the fact is that's what's happening with most of us. What about using, okay, when I first turned 60, I was in a meeting with another colleague who was 59, and another colleague who was in her 30s said to us, you know, we have to do more about those elderly people. You know, those people who are 60 and older. And I said, excuse me, how old do you think I am? Do you think I'm elderly? And she said, no. And I said, well, then please don't use that word so liberally. Elderly means frail. So, you know, it's really important. And I know a lot of older adults don't mind the word senior, but I don't like it. I feel when someone calls me a senior, I feel it's patronizing. So it's really important to use the right words and to understand who you're communicating with. And like Diana said, people 60 to 100, there's a big range. I'm just going to wrap it up now by saying if anyone would like these, I can leave these up front here and you can take one of those and hopefully we can start on this journey together of reframing aging. Thank you so much.
Before we start, Linda, I just want to add something about the Frameworks Institute. They do brilliant work. And they were sort of in the forefront, not sort of, they are in the forefront of working on ageism, but they have so much that's worthwhile on their website, and they're doing a lot of work in the UK. So if you're interested at all, check them out online.
Well, thank you to our panelists. At this point, we're going to take questions from the audience, and we're also going to have participants via Zoom. I'm going to keep monitoring the chat and see if we have questions on Zoom as well. Larry's going to come around with a microphone. And if you have questions, just raise your hand. Don't start speaking, please, until you get the microphone. First of all, so that everyone in this room can hear, but equally important so that the people on Zoom can hear you. There is, and I have a technology background, but this is new on me. There are devices in the ceiling, I guess, which will pick up what you're saying as well as the microphone. So hopefully the participants on Zoom will be able to hear your questions as well. So if anyone has a question.
I do not really have a question, but I would like to say something. The age difference between Tom Cruise and the other person, you forget to say that most men have plastic surgery. So it does not really work that, in my opinion. And the other one is too, I think, between women and men. This is still very much a man culture. So at parties, men always will be invited, while often women, especially when they are divorced, are not being invited. This is just a small addition to what you said. And I think it's important to mention these things. And otherwise, hooray to all of you. Thank you.
I wanted to make a comment as well, an experience of many that I've had. I've experienced with the medical system an extreme degree of ageism, but one of the most blatant was an email I received that said that you don't need to have another colonoscopy because you're over 65. And I called my doctor and I said, "Are you saying that nobody over the age of 65 gets colon cancer?" "Oh, no, we're not saying that." I said, "Then why did you do you not give colonoscopy?" But it's just an example of hundreds and hundreds of procedures that are denied us because of our age. I had a tooth extracted with a implant on the same day, and I was completely out of it for 3 days, which is unlike me. So I called a dental surgeon and I said, "There's nothing in your material about this." I said, highly recommend that you consult a geriatric specialist so that you can include in your materials how older people might react to anesthesia, uh, having an implant and an extraction on the same day. I mean, there was nothing in his paperwork that he passed out. Thank you.
That happens with medications too. that something that is prescribed for someone that is in their 30s or 40s is not going to affect someone for whom it's prescribed who's older in the same way. And it's critical to pay attention to that.
I'm going to continue on the unpleasant subject of colonoscopy.
This is gonna keep going.
I'm 81 and I had one when I was 80. And the doctor afterward said, well, you seem so healthy and all. You know, ordinarily Kaiser does not approve any colonoscopies for people over 80. But I'm going to make an exception in your case because you seem healthy and the need is there because I'm finding polyps. So,
Yeah, tell us about your relationship with your doctor.
Yeah.
Okay, while we're,
Well, there's someone.
okay, one more, go ahead.
I'd like to come at this from a different direction in terms of what does being older in society? And I think it's knowledge and wisdom and accumulated expertise. And there are many cases of this. In Japan, some of the folks are known as national treasures who have an enormous amount of expertise in an area. In the armed forces, when you're a master sergeant in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you have a lot of knowledge and you have major responsibilities, and you're asked for it. And if you look at the military again, who are the generals and the admirals and so on, and why are they in those positions? Because they have a lot of experience. And if I take this personally, I'm very proud. I'm older in age, but I'm very proud of the fact of all the mistakes I've made and all the errors that I've made, every possible one in many categories of high tech. And it's only because I have made those errors that I know what not to do, which I think is an aspect that when we talk about ageism is completely ignored. Why are not seniors valued for the knowledge and the wisdom and expertise that they bring to the party?
On that note, and following up on that, can either Diana or Janae give us some idea of where there are opportunities to use that wisdom, that knowledge that had come with more years?
Yes, I think what you're talking about, sir, is crystallized knowledge. And that's what we as older adults offer. And we also offer emotional intelligence because we've been through so many things, difficult things, we've handled them. In terms of where we can participate more and continue to contribute. One of my missions at the County of Marin, and it's, you know, I'm going to tell you it's a little bit of a struggle, to be honest, is to get our HR to see what an incredible pool of expertise and knowledge we have in our older adults. And yes, it would be nice if we had more part-time jobs for older adults. It'd be great if we also had more job sharing. That definitely fits a need. However, there's also a big need and a growing need for older adults to work full-time. Our survey found that older adults ages 60 to 64 are experiencing age discrimination and are having a really hard time finding a job. So one of the things that we do in Aging and Adult Services, and we run an area agency in aging as part of our office, and it's written into the Older Americans Act, is that we have to be advocates. So that's one of my passions, is helping employers see that. Another way that another really cool organization that I know about is called Encore. And Encore actually wants older adults and to both volunteer, and then they have other opportunities where they give you stipends. And they purposely want older adults to come in and help like I think United Way has used Encore before. Some Fortune 500 companies have used Encore before because they appreciate that. And I think in the work environment, it's really important to have um, diversity, not just racial diversity, not just ethnic diversity, but age diversity. And the studies show when you have an intergenerational team, your team actually performs at higher levels. So just some of my thoughts.
And I echo that. I'm an older adult who has to work in order to be able to. Marin is my home. My family is here, and it's difficult to find work. But what I hope I bring to the work that I do is exactly what you're talking about. Is my experience, and I have the great good fortune to work with people who are dealing with, I don't think that's the right term, but are being affected by the social determinants of health. And so anything I can do to help them get their lives stabilized, their finances stabilized, anything that we can do as a community, there is a good thing. And it is, there's so much wisdom, there's so much expertise in this county, and there's so many older people who are willing to, some people need to work, and so could really use a job. It's difficult though. One of the things that happened was that the former fire chief created a couple of part-time jobs, and they used a model from San Francisco because there's a lot of there are equity issues around posting and HR, and you know much more than I do about that. But he was able to create 2 part-time jobs, and he specifically, or more than 2, I don't want to say 2 because I'm not sure. And he was able to hire older adults who wanted to work, and it was very successful. But it's just a tiny example of that. And I don't know, I work in this area, and I don't know exactly how to help that happen. But if anybody out there has any ideas, please reach out to any of us, because we're all interested in making that happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda, I have a couple of notes. Now, it turns out ESCOM has a program that they initiated some 3-4 years ago called ESCOM Connects. Now, we have a table in the back. Please feel free to stop by when you're way out for ESCOM. And ESCOM connects the older people in our membership, and we have some 3,500 members. The average age is roughly 72, 73. Now, what we do is we support the younger students on campus in the same way, providing expertise for things like job interviews, ESL practice, helping with financial services, helping with things that the coursework does not address when younger students go out into the workplace. How do we dress? How do we act? How do we interview? This is where our older membership can help immensely. And it's been a hard sell with ESCOM, with the College Marin, to get these programs into play. We've done some panels for classes to help with real life issues, and some workshops. Leonard here knows what this is. It's his program. He's in the back. He'll be at the table and can talk to you about it. I think it has great promise, and we want to develop some real programs that we can, quote, sell, unquote, to the administration and to faculty. On the other side is, here I am, 81 and a half, and I just hired on College of Marin to teach a class. They are doing this. They didn't have any ageism with me, but I'm teaching a class on ageism. So there you go. So they're looking at expertise in a certain way. And let's see how it goes. But the idea is age was not an issue in this case. So they're looking for people with experience, with knowledge to come forth and help them in their programs. I'm hoping more and more this is the case. Thank you.
Anyone else with a question?
Hey, a microphone? Yes, my name is Robert. I just have a comment. I think that perhaps we should understand and really look into the deepness that people from different generations look at us differently. Just almost automatically. I take example from my own children. That my son comes over. These are adult children. Why are you still having a satellite dish? You should be streaming everything. And you're not using Microsoft 365. I don't know how you ever got along. That's just my own son, but other people I can see right away when I'm trying to discuss something financial or important. I don't discuss politics. Forget that. I don't do that. But they just look at us completely differently. And I think we just have to accept that and move forward based upon what you're telling us now, and to understand it, accept it, and move forward. Thank you.
Any comments on that?
Are there any questions on the chat?
There aren't any questions on the chat, but I do have one. If people do experience ageism, what do you recommend?
It's a really good question.
It's a good question.
And, I think that in my case, I'll just sort of stop and not respond and have the individual who's saying something listen to what they just said, right? And then with that, silence is incredibly powerful. And then if it's someone, it depends. I mean, it depends on my relationship with the individual. If I get an opportunity, I will say, that really didn't resonate with me. So I think that that's just what I do. Gary, what do you do when somebody says something ageist to you?
I hesitate as well, but it's really important to understand our feelings about that word doesn't make sense, doesn't feel good. How do I react? I think it's important to talk about that and not be silent. Silence is we soak up what we feel, and that's not healthy for us or for the person that says it or the group. So I've been known to write emails. I've been known to talk to people. This does not feel good for this reason. Give it voice. Whatever you feel is important.
I think that's great in both cases. I try to do that too. I think it is about trying to educate and trying to, forgive, right? Because we're brought up in this society and it's all, like I said earlier, these words, these phrases are everywhere. They're in birthday cards, they're in ads, they're, in anti-aging, whatever. So what I try to do often is try to help people in the younger generation see that they're going to be us one day, and that all that we're doing to advocate for improving our lives and the lives of other older adults, and to get on this anti-ageism train. It's going to help when other people get older. So helping people see that, hopefully you're going to live to be my age, and then maybe you'll understand when you're my age.
Okay, Kristen, Emily on Zoom. We're going to unmute you and then please ask your question.
Great, thank you very much. Here, let me go on camera. Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I will say that I missed a little bit of the beginning because I'm working today, so sorry about that. But I have a couple, one just to follow up with what Janae said about the importance of intergenerational approaches. And you know, one of a really good way to fight ageism is to get more generations on board with this, because as you said, Janae, people will age if they're lucky enough, right? And I wondered if there are any successful models that you can share, especially here in Marin, where we have used that type of intergenerational approach to combat ageism.
The one that I'd like to talk about actually is in the Bay Area. Hi, Kristen. It's really good to see you. It's not here in the Bay Area, but in the Northwest in Washington State, where there's a preschool right next door, or really part of a skilled nursing facility. And the older folks that are living in the skilled nursing facility get to interact with the kids, and vice versa. And it's just one idea that has borne fruit in a variety of different different areas in the country, and seems to be working really well, because if young kids don't know anybody who's older, then you need to create those connections. And so that's one example that I know of, but Janae and Gary may know others.
Well, in our Office of Aging and Adult Services, we have funded different intergenerational programs at San Geronimo Valley Community Center, Vivillon, and Marin City Community Services District. And there's also a wonderful program. The executive director is here right now. Barbara Brown is the executive director of LEDA. Love is the answer. And they have a wonderful intergenerational program called Bridging Generations that brings school children into assisted living communities around Marin for the entire school year. And I know that you used to survey the students pre and post. And some of the students might, what do you think of older adults? Well, they're wrinkly and they're kind of cranky and they're very fun. What do you, at the end of the school year, what do you think? They're cool, they're fun, they're, they're just, funny, they're smart. So, that's one of the advantages of an intergenerational program. You really get to learn about, something that you really didn't know anything about, and that you see the other side. So I'm sure Barbara would be happy to talk to anyone who's interested in that program, right, Barbara? Thank you.
Hello?
I think experience and a connection with intergenerations, in other words, young and old, helps. Without the contact and the in-person, and COVID hurt a lot because it isolated people, young from old. School kids, they have no idea what the real world was for 2 years. Now they're catching up. So I think it's really important on intergenerational. Corte Madera is doing an intergenerational center. It won't be open until October, as it turns out, because it's related to the city of San Rafael. But we're working with the director, Aging Action, and they're doing programs at various places. Soon they'll have a place to do them. And I've suggested social meetings with older people to meet with younger people. They like the idea. Let's see if we can go with it. There's also, we're going to be doing computer workshops there. And you'd be surprised, a lot of younger people come to our workshops, not just older, because people want to know about tech. And they get along fine. They learn from each other. And it's a blast, actually. So we're working on it. And ESCOM dropped an age limit 5 years ago. We will accept anybody. We want everybody, including students, younger students, to be a part of us. So.
Okay, I'm going to recognize, before we get back to the audience, I'm going to recognize Kent Shu on Zoom. Go ahead, Mr. Shu.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to bring a point. I'm 82 and I've still been going to a lot of meetings involved with real estate and some of the real estate planning that's going on. And I think one of the things that we need to do in county is we've been pushing more housing in general for the seniors, but I think we need to do more intergenerational planning so that wherever we set up housing, we can have the youngers as well as the olders, because even the younger kids are still having children. They need babysitters. They need to interact with the grandparent, whatever age we become grandparents, whether we start off really young in our 30s and 40s or as old as we are now, that at least we get the exposure going. And I was just exposed to about 330 acres up in Reading, and I suggested to them that they were planning commercial enterprise as well as low-income housing. But I said, make it intergenerational so that at least it becomes a complete community when you're trying to do that.
Thank you.
This will be a little contrarian, I guess, but personally, when I get my real estate taxes and I get these forms, if you're a senior citizen, you don't have to pay these parcel taxes. Why do they assume that everybody who's older can't take care of themselves financially? I was called for jury duty. I had knee surgery, and I was speaking with them, and they said, "Oh, by the way, if you're over 70, we'll just take you off the roll." They didn't mandate it, but it's assumption that if you're a certain age, yeah, there's a lot of people with tough situations, but not everybody. Just don't assume that I can't pay for the mosquito abatement because I'm, over a certain age.
Any comments on that from the panel?
I think that's a great point. And the point is that, arbitrarily there's an age being set and assumptions are being made. And I think for anyone who can afford to pay the taxes, that's wonderful, no matter what age you are. And any who can't, it's understandable. So when you're of a certain age, so.
Can I speak yet? This is Eloise.
My name is Robert. You said addressed the question about the finance. I'm retired now 16 years. I'm 82 years of age. Going to be 83 next month. And I retired with a modest pension and Social Security. Now, my pension is not indexed for inflation. And for me, that money is worth about half of what it was, or maybe more 16 years ago. So that could be one of the reasons people are concerned about elderly not having enough money. Inflation is a killer to elderly and retired people.
Okay, we have one more person on Zoom who has a question.
Yes, this is me, Eloise. I guess my name isn't coming up. Okay. There we go. I have been a teacher in community colleges for many years in English and in ESL, including in College of Marin, not all that long ago. And I missed something in this meeting that I wanted to grab because I want to volunteer. I'd be happy to volunteer at College of Marin with either English students or ESL or both. And I just don't quite know who to contact to be able to do that.
That's a very good topic. Okay, at the College of Marin, as a volunteer to do ushering for the theater, one example, you would think, oh, let's come in and help usher. It's easy. You don't need training, and we can do it just fine and gain experience and give our experience to the students and the people that watch the play. That's not possible because because of the regulations on the school district and the county and the unions, they need to vet everybody that is a volunteer. And the paperwork takes about 2 weeks. It's really onerous. We wanted to do tutoring because of our experience. That was a logical place for an older group to help the younger in the tutoring. That's also not allowed. And it's interesting, but only with the college. I don't know about other places. I think not. It doesn't fall out that way at Dominican, but because of the school district, it does. So there's the answer to that issue.
You mean one is not allowed to tutor students there, even if you have expertise in their subject. Is that right?
Exactly.
Even if I taught
Hard to say.
Okay. Well, I'm wanting to go do this at the library, maybe. I'm trying to volunteer at Canal Alliance. I just like to be able to contribute. Okay.
Come on down and help us on the Commission on Aging. Join one of our committees, and it would be wonderful to have you. There are a number of health and nutrition. There is planning, plans. There is housing and transportation, and of course, I've forgotten the names of the other committees. But the Commission on Aging is a great place to. Where do you live?
You talking to me? San Anselmo.
San Anselmo.
We have a lot of other questions. So if possible, can you give us your name and contact information in the chat? And maybe somebody could get back to you on some possible avenues for you to pursue. Would that work for you?
That would be great.
Thank you. All right, I have a question on Zoom. Your name is AF. So let's try that.
Hi, I was wondering if any of the commissions or agencies at the city, county, or state level have ever thought about preparing and presenting a PSA ad campaign to educate younger people about the value of people over 50, 60, etc. I was thinking in particular that perhaps banners could be placed on like Golden Gate Transit and other transit modes that educate people. And you could have some funny slogans. One thing like don't laugh, people over 60 have already made the mistakes and learned from mistakes that you're about to make. Have something kind of funny to kind of make people think about the value of our age group.
Thank you. Any ideas on advertising campaigns or?
That's a really interesting idea. We'll have to, work with that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe even involve ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments. Maybe you could get some funding for it and do it Bay Area wide.
Thank you. Thank you for that suggestion.
Thank you, AJ.
Any questions or comments?
I think advertising and marketing, in most cases in the county, is very expensive. For a 16th of a page ad, what is it, $500 on the monthly newsletter? No, it's very hard to do.
Would you
I
be
work
able
a lot
to
with the League of Women Voters, and we've gotten funding for putting placards on the backs of backs of buses.
Okay.
About
yeah,
why would you vote? Or,
yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking.
What's the issue? It would be a public service announcement,
Yes,
kind of funding.
Good.
So it's a possibility. Any other questions in the room? Larry?
My name is Ingrid, and I've been residing here for 47 years. And I escaped the clinic in Germany. And when I came after a 9-hour flight to Vancouver, I had no more pain. So I had to find out what happened. And I knew this was God's plan. And I discovered alternative healing 47 years ago. Who is practicing, not just teaching or an awareness of alternative healing? I'm getting in so much trouble with the doctors in Marin County and the larger Bay Area. And I would like to know, now that I'm 73 years old, who has the practices going for themselves and the smaller and the larger community to heal our body. And numerous of my previous teachers are no longer around. So I'm curious who can we collaborate with in our healing. And I used to dance with Anna Helprin the last 20 years, now that she's passed also. This creative spirit and activism.
Diana, any comments on that? It's your area.
Who can help? Who can participate in this enthusiasm about life and ageism?
There is there's so much that goes on in Marin County in terms of practices. There, like I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner, and I know they teach Feldenkrais here, movement education, and there are many people in the county who practice all different kinds of medicine, from osteopathy to naturopathy. And it's a very rich county in that way. And the flip side to that is that it's also expensive to access those services. And so
$50 an hour.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. So Ingrid, I don't know who's, offering clinic hours when I was practicing over in Berkeley, in Feldenkrais, we would offer clinics, but I think that that's one of the key some things that are missing are services for people that don't have a lot of income.
All right, we just got a couple of more minutes, and I just want to give our panelists an opportunity to give closing or final thoughts. Should we start with Janae and work our way back?
Well, thank you for your interest in this topic. And I do have these handouts for you from the Frameworks Institute, so you can start looking at the way that you talk about aging too, because I think it does start with us. And enjoy the beautiful weather this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone who came today and everyone who's online that we can't quite see. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Gary and ESCOM, and thank you to the College of Marin for hosting this event. And a big, huge thank you to Rachel Kurtz, who was really the driving force of bringing this ageism and inviting us to come and speak with you and share this time with you around the topic of ageism. So thank you very much.
Thank you for coming out for this. This is quite an honor to be up here and working with you, which is what we're doing, to help you with your questions, your issues, and to help define the problems of elderhood. Getting on and moving forward creatively with good feelings and good health. I hope we're doing what about age? Justice. And it's still over until May the 6th at the Civic Center. These posters are just some examples. They have original art. It's a full program. Go ahead and enjoy it. Knowing what you have heard today, look at these pictures and imagine what it's like.
The exhibit is on the first floor and the third floor of the Civic Center. And what Rachel did was work with younger and older artists. And the topic was ageism. Gary and I went on opening night, and it was, but Gary and I went when it was really quiet, and we just had a wonderful time looking at the exhibit. And if you run into Rachel in your travels, if you live in San Rafael, please give her a shout out, because she's done some tremendous work on ageism, bringing this to Marin County, and also bringing other artists, involving other artists in their reflections on ageism. I'm hoping that she's going to take the show on the road. I don't know whether that's going to happen, but if you have an opportunity, don't miss the exhibit.
Thank you to everyone, and that concludes our program.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda, for moderating. It was great. I hope you enjoyed the new space.